In this video, we're going to look at how we can combine radicals when we're being asked to multiply. So any of these videos that we're looking at, any of these topics, we always want to try to simplify as much as possible. So when we look at multiplying radicals, I actually think this is the easiest out of these four. So our first example here, remember that in some of our other videos we've kind of seen how the square root of some expression can be factored out, can be written as two different radicals being multiplied together. So I know that square root of 6 times square root of 2 is really the same as square root of 6 times 2. So we want to multiply the expressions that are underneath these radicals here. And now we've combined these two into one radical, so square root of 12. But we always want to think, is there anything more I can do to simplify? So we want to look for perfect squares that we can factor out. I know that 4 times 3 is 12, and square root of 4 is 2. So we end up with 2 root 3 as the product of these two radicals. Okay. Our last example here, give these a try, and I threw variables in there again. So if those throw you off, do it with just the numbers first, and then try the x's separately, and then maybe combine your answers. So I know that we have to multiply 12x times 4x, and we get 48x squared. Well, now I'm looking for perfect squares. So you might have thought of a couple different ways of factoring this with a perfect square. So if you're ever stuck, always start with the smaller numbers there. So 4 and 9 are typically your best bets, or your go-tos there. So I know that I can divide by 4. So it factors into 4 times 12 times x squared. So now if I look at these individually, I could write this as square root of 4 times square root of 12 times square root of x squared. So square root of 4 is 2. Square root of 12 needs to just stay root 12. And square root of x squared is actually just x, right? The square and the square root will cancel. So we get 2 root 12 times x. If this was my final answer, I would need to write it as 2x root 12. But from our previous example, we know that this can be factored even further into 4 times 3, right? Just so every time you get to a point where you think it might be the answer, think, can I simplify it anymore? So we end up with 2x times square root of 4 times 3, and we can factor out another 4 here, so square root of 4 is 2, and 2 times 2x will give us 4x root 3. Okay, now maybe you thought of something other than 4 and 12 when you factored 48. If you can find a larger perfect square to factor out first, that just eliminates the steps you have to do. So you may have gotten 16 times 3, and we know square root of 16 is 4. Square root of x squared is x, and that gives us what we had down here, 4x root 3. Now if you end up with a coefficient in front of these radicals in your multiplying, so let's say there was a 5 in front, well then this 5 carries down as the coefficient here and here, and then once you take that square root of 4, now you're just going to take 5 times 2, and that just becomes a product for your coefficient. So everything in here is basically being multiplied out.